is abandoning me because she's got to go check the chicken that's probably catching on fire in the oven right now. We got the girls, Kona and Sage, out here, and we're with the cattle. So, like normal, you guys know that watch me. I don't normally get into the good stuff for a minute or two here until we get some folks joining the live, but we're going to, talk about a couple things. The Total Grazing Program is a hot button subject. It really is. It's got some people all and got their panties in a wad, which is fine. To each their own, right? But as you can see, hopefully the title of this video is why most ranchers are understocked and overgrazed. So that's what we'll be getting into here in a minute. And hey, howdy guys. So yeah. So what is being understocked and overgrazed, and why does that happen? I'm doing great, thanks, Lauren. We won't be real long tonight, so phone is gonna probably not last too long. So the subject matter here is, again, there's understocked and overgrazed. Well, it really comes down to the simplicity of being a selective grazer. So if you selectively graze, you're gonna have some serious problems. And that number one problem is gonna be that you're gonna see first and foremost is you're going to circulate around your farm so fast, you're gonna get back to the beginning before your grasses have rested. So how do we prevent that? How do we prevent grazing our land so fast that we get back to square one where we started before your grasses are recovered? All right, hey, we got somebody here. Swiss Army Light Mountain Mortar. Hey, all right. Balls off. Oh man, I'm sorry. We're down here in Missouri and beautiful. We had some rain today. It's really warm and it's actually just perfect fall weather. It's unbelievable. Got a little bit warm earlier and I started sweating, so I almost complained. But we're actually from Alaska, or spent at least 8 years up there, so I can feel your pain, brother. That freezing your butt off. I used to work well above the Arctic Circle on the north slope of Alaska, right on the Beaufort Sea. Did a lot of offshore exploratory out in the Brooks Range, 40 plus below, pitch black for 2.5 months out of the year, and blowing sideways. So I got you. It sucks. That's why we moved out of Alaska. I love Alaska, but man, it's too cold, too nasty. Anyway, all right, so back to the subject. Why is it? Okay, we got people on here. So, truth be said about Jesus Christ. Well, I'm going to get to that comment later. I'm going to read that. So how do you prevent overgrazing? Well, there's several facets to that. So really the definition of a total grazer, or someone that practices what we practice here on our land to get more cow days out of our land, meaning more rations of feed, meaning we can carry more animals, meaning we can grow more grass, right? The best way to do that is to consume as much of the forage that is available per paddock as you move forward, as much as the genetics of your animals will allow. What does that mean? As much as the genetics will allow, What that means is every animal, right, is either more or less adapted to the environment it's in. So if you have an animal that is more well adapted, it's gonna have better things like, say, where we're at, better heat tolerance, right? Better parasite resistance, better feed conversion efficiency on warm season grasses, easier fleshability. All these things really come together, and so it's super important that you work on your genetics. So I think a lot of folks have been missing that when they've heard people talk poorly of the Total Grazing Program, and they say things like, oh, well, I tried it and my animals fell apart, meaning they got skinny and they didn't breed back and all this stuff. Well, that's only because likely they didn't apply the principles, the 4 pillars that Jim Elizondo talks about in his grazing program called the Total Grazing Program. And so if you don't apply all 4 of them, you're going to have a problem. Like, it's kind of like building a house. You can have the best walls and the best stud construction or beam and post and beam and heavy trusses or timbers, and you have a poor foundation, it's going to fall down, or likewise in the reverse. So it's a system, it all works together, and you have to understand it. So once you understand how it works out here with these animals and the land, then you'll be successful. So don't just throw in your hat and be like, well, I should say throw in the towel. This system sucks, it doesn't work. No, it works, and it works really, really well. This is living proof right behind me. But You have to have animals that can consume the forage that is put in front of them and keep good body condition and animal performance, right? So, so that's what you need to really focus on and get your head wrapped around, the right genetics for your environment. So these are South Pole and South Pole Cross. They work pretty good where we're at. Would I suggest somebody that lives in British Columbia to have South Poles? Absolutely not. That would be foolish. So I'm not going to sit here and say, my breed of cattle is the only breed of cattle on the planet you should have, and anything other than that is stupid. There's a lot of people that say that kind of stuff, and that is silly. There's many breeds of cattle that are way better than these in their given environment they're adapted to. So, you know, something more far north would probably be more like an English or a European breed of cattle, something that's more well cold weather adapted, or them damn furry things from Scotland, right? Don't put those things down here in the Ozarks or in Florida. It's terrible. It's too much stress on them. So, okay, so we know we got to consume as much forage as what's in front of us that we can, right? So if you do that, you're going to raise your harvest efficiency. Harvest efficiency, obviously referring to how much your cattle are going to consume of any paddock that they're standing on. Now, kind of bring you up to speed here. Now you look, there's a ton of grass in here still. They haven't really eaten it, but there's a reason. Yes, soybean meal is good feed. No, I don't think it affects the meat, but it definitely affects the performance of their rumen. And that's really ultra important, obviously, right? It has more amino acid, a better amino acid ratio than a lot of other feeds. So you will see greater performance out of it from my understanding. I have fed it and I've seen dramatic improvements in their condition in a very, very short period of time. We fed just a little bit here and there, pound to 2 pounds every other day, 5 days on, excuse me, every other day. Sometimes we'll take a several day break. All it really is, you just watch their manure. And if their manure looks good, you're fine. You know, give them a little more, take a little away. You can really dial them in. So yes, I like the soy meal so far. It's been really good. Anyway, so what we do in our break, this is called a new cell here. Okay, so we got a back fence. We have a fence over here and a fence over there. So let's just think of it as a football field. I'll use that analogy a lot. So we got a football field here that we're gonna graze. So we start with the back fence over here. It's at the road. You can see a water right there and our mineral. And so what we do is we start, say, at the back of the end zone. That's our first spot. And then we graze the end zone and maybe to the 5-yard line. That is our first break in that cell. The reason we do that is we give them a lot more room in the first break because we keep horses in here. We're a little different than other folks. We keep horses and cattle together. If you jam your cattle and your horses in a really, really super tight area with no escape for the cattle, they will go through your fence or jump it if the horses decide to put pressure on them, right? So, oh yeah, it definitely reduces the stress. Petting my cattle. People like to watch me pet my cattle. I have some here that are very well adapted to petting. This is 970. She's just a midget. She's a tiny little thing. She gave us an enormous, enormous calf. I get really easily distracted. Sorry guys with the comments, but here's another one that loves to be pet. Let's check him out. What we got here? What's this guy? Well, that's our herd sire. That's Bruno, my bull. And he loves his pets. He actually comes over anytime he wants a pet and he bows down, puts his nose around my toes and lets me know he wants a scratch. Or if he really wants a scratch and I haven't given it to him when I'm out there, hey, you're bumping me. He will bawl at me to let me know that he didn't get his scratches. So, okay, let me get back on task. So we put our back fence at the back of the end zone and our first break is to about the 5-yard line. And then 4 times a day, if our forage is correct, if we have high quality forage and we're going to consume almost every bit of it, we go ahead and we move that fence, that front fence that was at the 5-yard line to maybe say the 17-yard line, 5-yard line to the 7-yard line, and then maybe the 10 or maybe the 15, but we barely move it forward very, very incrementally up to 4 times per day. And what that does is it really increases your stocking density, and stocking density is ultra important to get a high harvest efficiency. When you put your animals in a really tight area, and a lot of them nose to butt, they become very competitive. When they become very competitive, they lose that selectiveness that otherwise naturally have. So cattle, horses, any grazing creature, pretty much any animal on the planet, including us, we're very, very selective, right? If you put a a donut in front of us, or you put a carrot in front of us, most people are gonna probably go for the donut unless you're health conscious. And cattle are not health conscious. They don't give a rat's ass. They just want to eat what tastes good and is the highest in nutrition to them. So that's what they do. Well, that's how you end up with all those, what I like to call grass islands out in your pastures. If you drive by a farmer's field and you see this grass pasture and you see these blobs of grass all over it that look like islands, and everything in between those is grazed down like that, like a putting green. Well, that is due to selective grazing. And selective grazing makes you very, very inefficient. It makes you move around your farm very fast. It leads to overgrazing and being understocked. So let me get back to some of these comments, guys. You've been blowing me up here. How do you give your cattle water since your land is so big? How do you haul it, pressurized ponds? Yes. Okay, let's go back to that real quick. And again, I've only got like 17% on my phone, so I'll try and keep it quick, guys. Something else for all you folks, or folks that do watch us, and if our feed right now is kind of poor, I apologize, but we are working on that. I'm going to be setting up a mobile Starlink apparatus out on the four-wheeler or trailer or something that I'll actually take out to the pastures with me when I do these lives in the fields, so we have a much better, higher quality stream. So there you go. Just this little tiny, I think that's a 25 or a 30. It's really small. And we just have, this is actually a PEX, it's HDPE pipe, and that is not IPS, which would be iron pipe size. It is CPS, so copper pipe size. So when they call it 3/4 or 1 inch, it's actually smaller than you would normally think of as standard poly pipe size. But at any rate, that is 3/4 inch PEX. And then we have a 1 inch up there, and they connect together. So we have two lengths here, each are 300 feet long. I'll be adding another one, so we'll have a total of 900 feet. We can go over the top of the land from any one of our hydrants. We have several across. We have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we have 7 hydrants currently on the land. And we'll add a few more to make it a little more convenient. But during the green season, that's all we do. We just, you want some eggs? Stop on by. We got plenty. During the green season, we just run pipe across top ground. Now, if it's out in the middle of the sun through short grass, it'll get boiling hot in the summer. So you have two options. You need to hide it better in your grass so it doesn't get sun on it. Or a couple times a day, you need to go dump your trough and flush your hose and exchange the water. Because once the water gets so hot, in the trough, they won't drink. They stop drinking. And it's an easy way to dehydrate your cattle. I mean, like, the water will get 120, 30 degrees. You can barely put your hand in it. So we dump it periodically, try to keep it in the shade as much as we can. Come winter, it doesn't really matter. We actually will, well, I say it doesn't matter because we'll actually just create lanes all the way back to the water points, because we're not afraid of overgrazing by backgrazing. Backgrazing is when an animal returns to grass that has been grazed previously and now is going back to its vegetative state and regrowth. It's starting to come back and they take a bite off it. Now you overgrazed. End of story. I've seen the most impactful improvements on our land avoiding that one simple rule. If you take nothing else away from Total Grazing, Jim Elizondo, me running my neck out here, that is the one thing you must do to prevent damaging your plant's energy reserves. It is absolutely imperative. We used to make that mistake a little bit here and there, and man, can you see it in the performance of those pastures when they try and regrow. If they come back and take one bite of that plant as it's regrowing, it puts it in an energy deficit, and they come back slow and really anemic. And it doesn't just affect you on that growth cycle, it can affect your regrowth cycle for many to come. I've seen it last a year or more, a full season. We don't see those rebound and start acting normal again till the following year. So don't do that. You want to work for me? I don't know if I can pay you, but you can come work for me. Come on down. We'll put you to work. There's always something to do. See these trees behind me? I got like 2.4 million of them, and I need to thin them out. So bring a chainsaw. All right, let's get back. Here we go. Do I dye my stash? No, actually I don't, but I'll tell you what, this stuff is gray. You get really close, there's some grays in there, but yeah, it comes in like Santa Claus to about right here. So if I want to take about 15 years off, I just shave the beard, Because yeah, that's pretty gray up there. I look a little frosted. But yeah, we actually joke about it. I'm like, yeah, I'll just, you know, if I want to look younger, I just leave the stash and the flavor saver. But when I had the beard on yesterday, boy, and it was about as white as my shirt. You notice I wear a lot of white shirts out here because of the heat, you know. Dark colors in the summer for a northern boy, it about kills me. So I'm lucky. You got that right. Hello from Japan. Hey, howdy. All right. I'm not too bad, right? 46. I mean, that sounds really old, but I feel like I'm still like an immature 14-year-old. My wife would probably agree with that statement. Okay, so where was I? I get all over the place. When you guys start talking to me, I just like, so when you overgraze your property by selectively grazing, you have a very low carrying capacity. If you have a very low carrying capacity, that means you're going to be understocked. So it's ultra imperative. The most improvement you're going to see in your land, I don't care what anybody else says, and they're allowed to their opinions, and that's perfectly fine. We live in the United States of America. You're allowed to voice your opinion, and no one needs to like it, but you're allowed to say it. So, disclaimer, if you don't agree with me, that's fine. There's a lot out there that don't. But if you take and run your animals at low stocking densities, meaning spread out, okay? Whether you're selective grazing or not, which it's impossible to non-selectively graze at low stocking densities. But say you had magic cows and they would just eat anything you put in front of them, but you could spread them all out over the place. You still will not see the recovery and the impactful biological amazing regrowth that happens in the improvement of your land without having your cattle packed really tight together. When you do that and they're just on top of each other and a hoof steps on every square inch of this pasture before they're moved out, and there's a turd every few feet, right? Like, oh, that's like dinosaur shit there. I mean, that's that 2,000-pound horse over there, boy, when she drops it, it's like a wheelbarrow. But here, look, I'm just gonna show you. And they've only been in here since this morning, and there's still a lot of forage for them to take here. I only gave them a tiny bit more this evening because I expect them to come back and mop this stuff up. So keep your animals really tight, move them really frequent. And if you do that, they'll be less selective. You will see massive improvements in your land really, really fast. So what we try and do here is we try to create a very severe, intense grazing event, right? Meaning we nuke it. What we're trying to do is literally nuke it. I mean, just obliterate it with crap and urine and hooves and just murder it. And then we let it recover fully, completely fully. And how you can tell that a plant is fully recovered, a grass plant anyway, you're gonna go dig around down low, get to the base of your plant, and you're going to look for the basal leaf, right? Which is gonna be pretty much your bottom leaf, and it's gonna be one of the older leaves, one of the oldest ones on the plant, and you're gonna see it yellow. And when it starts yellowing, I don't know the science behind it, I'm no scientist, but that's an indicator that you have a really good energy balance between the plant root and its stores, right? So that is your indicator. Okay, let's graze it. Now, I don't even see that on my grass before it goes to seed. It just goes to a seed head. So that's where you have to become a grazier. You got to be a land manager. You have to know when to identify that and decide if you're going to graze that grass, even though it's probably not recovered, but it's stressed and it's going to seed. So you need to know, everything in context, people. You can't just say, well, I'm not going to graze that because of blah, blah, blah. Well, you got to make that decision. Do you have enough grass ahead of you? Are you willing to sacrifice some of this to rest some of that, to give you more recovery time? So those are all the things you need to do. But when it boils down to, I will say this, I would rather feed hay than overgraze. I'd rather feed hay than return back to a paddock before it is recovered. Why? Because ultimately in the long run, you're going to feed a lot more hay if you don't rest that grass and let it recover than feeding a little hay now to let it get back on its feet and fully recover, energy balance, and be ready for its new growth cycle. So also do not forget that if you're into cattle and land management, I hear a lot of people talk about rest, right? Oh, you got to rest your fields. Rest doesn't really mean anything. Recovery means everything. So don't forget, the rest only counts for recovery if in favorable growing conditions, meaning the right temperature, the right time of year, and proper moisture content in the soil, right? So you can rest something for a year or two, but if you're in a massive drought, that doesn't really count for recovery, right? So sometimes your plants can be fully recovered in maybe 35, 40 days. I personally don't see my plants recover any faster than that. We're still working on our soil quality and health. Some will claim that no, 21 days, man, it's recovered. I don't know. Maybe if you're in Bahia grass, sure, that stuff goes to seed like in 20 days. And if you don't graze it before it erupts completely or emerges, your protein content will go so far down that your cattle will starve on it. So, it's all species specific. Very, very important to keep that in mind too, right? We're in the fescue belt. We got a lot of fescue on this land. Now there's a lot of areas we don't have fescue. Now, if you don't know anything about fescue, fescue is a love-hate relationship with most cattlemen. Fescue, and I'll talk about this a lot because we're in fescue country. Now there's a lot of other places that can grow it. Pacific Northwest, there's people that farm it up there and they run on it. But here where we're at, especially associated with our high humidity and the warmer summer temps with the humidity, it grows this wonderful thing called endophyte. Endophyte is basically a fungus that symbiotically resides in the plant. It does great things for the plant. It makes it tougher, stronger, more drought resistant, parasite, and all kinds of disease resistant, all this amazing stuff. But that is also highly toxic to your animals because it secretes or makes an ergoalkaloid. This alkaloid is highly toxic. So you have to learn how to manage on it, and levels of it spike and fall throughout the year. There's different times of the year. You get more endophyte, less endophyte, da-da-da-da-da. So if you have just a monoculture of fescue and you put your cattle on it when it's hot, you can lose tails, hooves, ears. They can sick, die on you, overheat, stress. It's bad stuff, right? So you have to learn how to manage through that. And the problem is our land here is so freaking diverse. We got hills and hollers and draws and creek bottoms and river bottoms and hilltops, and we got a little bit of everything. And so you will see on our north facing slopes, we got a lot more fescue. Cool season grasses, they prefer them, right? South facing slopes, we have predominantly warm season grasses with less cool seasons. So your C3s and C4 grasses, right? Different photosynthetic process. So on the back side of the hill, I got to graze completely different than I graze on the front of the hill, right? On the front of the hill, there's a lot more endophyte infested fescue, endophyte infested fescue. Say that like 3 times really fast. Endophyte infested fescue, there we go. So you have to learn all those things, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I'm amazing and I do it great all the time. I mess up all the time. Now, what I try and do is mess up very small, right? That's a win for me now. I consider like, man, I barely messed up today and yesterday and last week. So take the small victories, and run with them when you're learning to graze like this. This is a very intensive grazing management. Again, we move animals 4 times a day. We want really high animal stocking densities. Right now, well, they're kind of spread out. They're just kind of lollygagging. We left a ton of forage behind because, again, we are in the end zone of our football field starting our new cell. So they will continue cleaning this up through the night. Your cattle, when the temperatures are warmer, will consume more in the evenings than they will in the morning, midday, and afternoon. So we've learned that in the mornings, we give them a little slice, maybe a little bit bigger piece than we normally would in the next 2 breaks because they're hungrier from sitting around all night. They're ready, their rumen is empty and they're ready to eat. So they eat pretty good. And then the next 2 breaks, they don't eat as much. So we don't give them as much. And then come evening, we give them a bigger break because, well, they're going to consume more because they're finally cool. Remember, an animal that is a ruminant, these are ruminants, basically inside their gut is a composter. That is their rumen. It's full of microbiology and it creates a ton of heat when it is composting this grass into a form that they can digest. So if you have them on higher fibers content, higher lignified grasses, they're going to create more heat because they have to ruminate harder. So take all those things into consideration and understand how it works. So that is why cattle will consume less in the middle of the day when it's warm out than they will in the evenings, because they have to regulate their intake. If they just eat as much as they can put in them, especially with high fiber warm season grasses, they will overheat and stress and can die and bad stuff. So you just kind of learn those things. So back to the overgrazing and understocked. Johann Zeitzman, I think, is famous for saying that, and I think some other gentleman has said that. Zeitzman, excuse me. it really boils down to the point of being a selective grazer. If you selectively graze, you're not going to be able to carry many animals. It's just kind of how it works, guys. So anyway, I haven't even given a plug yet. So here on our ranch, here at Tick Creek Ranch, Alton, Missouri, on November 7th and 8th of this year, we're going to have Jim Elizondo as the guest speaker, and he's going to give his 2-day on-site Total Grazing program course, and it's awesome. I've been to it. I've taken all his courses and classes online, his mastery training and all that stuff. And boy, it is an eye-opener. If you run animals, you totally have to do it if you've never done it. Yes, you can take all the online stuff in his courses, and those are wonderful. But there's nothing like really seeing it up close and personal. And, you know, that kind of, that'll help solidify it. You know, I think a lot of people think it's snake oil. I used to think that big time. So anyway, right here, there is a link in the description of this video. I think it says RW Ranching Alton 2024. That's the link. And there also is, I just put a link to a study that us total grazers really rely on through a lot of our methodology and why we think the way we do about a really well recovered plant and how it actually builds your soil much faster than just crapping on the surface and trampling down all of your forage. That's what's being taught in so many other grazing methods, is that you need to feed your soil from the surface. We don't believe that. We don't believe that because the science points to that is very short cycle or short life carbon. When you feed from the surface, it volatilizes very easily. It disappears, goes back in the atmosphere. And the soil that you build very, very deep with long life carbon or long cycle carbon is actually created from root exudates that grow copious amounts of microbes deep in the soil. And it's their dead bodies, their skeletons basically, that is the pure carbonous forms that are left in your soil. That's the true fertility of your soil. So I love that. It's a lot of jargon. It's a lot to digest. It's just a very completely 180-degree different view of how to manage land. And this is what we lean on heavily. Now, I haven't done my own scientific research, and I haven't done all of that crazy stuff and looked under microscopes, but I do have the power of observation, and my observations tell me that this stuff works. We grow 5 times more grass easily this year than we did the last 2 years over. So we grow a ton of grass. You have to learn to manage it though, because you might be grazing overly mature grasses to get your land in the position you need it to be. And you have to learn how to do that. Okay, guys, you've been blowing me up here. Let's see here. You're trying to be like me. I'm sorry. That's a really low bar. I mean, don't you have someone better to look up to? All right. Let's see. I got to go back. You guys, man, you guys buried me. Sorry. So, okay, Jack, no, we don't move the fence until day 3. I'm sorry, Jack, I didn't answer your question if you're still on here. So at day 3, we move everything forward. The back fence that was at the back of the end zone, and now say our front fence is at the 30-yard line. Now we move the back fence up and trap them somewhere between, say, the 20 and 30-yard line, or so on and so forth. So that makes sense. So they don't have access to this grass back here that they've previously grazed for more than 72 hours tops. That will prevent you from overgrazing, okay? Now, anything that they don't take, and I didn't graze right, personally as the manager of them, the herd manager, my daughter and I both do it, if we screwed up and we didn't put them in high enough stock densities, or the forage quality is too low and they're leaving some because their animal performance is suffering, then we have a couple options. Graze them more selectively, or give them a little soy protein. Give them a little soy meal protein. Man, they start eating this garbage up if it's bad. Right now, this is actually really palatable and still high quality because there's a lot of fescue in here. So we're gonna let them mop up more of this. So if whatever they leave behind though, guess what I do? I get on the old skid steer with that front brush hog mower, and I scalp it. I cut as close to the ground as I possibly can. And if I have to go over it like a couple times to destroy the windrows and blow them apart and really mulch it fine, I'll do it. I'm looking at getting a more efficient way of clipping. I'm honestly looking at finish mowers, not bush hogs. I'm looking at finish mowers so I can get a tighter, cleaner cut and more mulching ability, something that doesn't leave a giant windrow that mats down and suppresses your regrowth, okay? It's a perfect example of why we don't selectively graze and trample all of our forage down to feed the soil and give it the armor and all that stuff, because it suppresses regrowth so terribly. And all that crap that you leave intact on your plant, all the stuff that they rejected, why did they reject it? It was because it was old and unpalatable. And that old and unpalatable blade of grass that people like to claim is, oh, we're in the solar business and we're solar collectors. And if you cut off all the solar panels, it won't grow back. Well, regrowth isn't generated or powered by the photosynthetic or photosynthesis driven process. It's driven by energy stores in the roots. So springtime, for example, you got no grass out there. It's all dead and dry and brown and whatever. Well, how does the grass grow in the spring? Coming out of dormancy. Energy reserves, same thing here. So if you leave that old blade of grass on there and those old stems, well, stems respire, which that means they consume carbohydrates and they consume oxygen, and in respiration they secrete carbon dioxide, but they are using the energy stores of your plants. And then you have those old deadbeat garbage leaves still on your plant that are very old, and those really old ones, come to find out, are really inefficient at photosynthesis. So all you did was left all the old broken solar panels on the plant that nothing wants to eat, and the stems that respire and drain the plant of its energy. That is why we take as much of the plant as we can possibly take. Now people like to say, all them total grazers, they eat it to the dirt. I mean, only if I'm doing a really good job. No, there is a little bit of litter. Don't get me wrong. It's not bare dirt when we're done. There's just not any extra. There's just the most perfect total graze. Let me see if I can find a spot that I would consider a perfect total graze. Yeah, okay, look at this. I'm gonna flip the camera around. I got 5%, guys, so I'm running out. Here we go. See this? I would consider that an absolute win. That is a perfect total graze. There's my finger. Here's your grass. Do you see a bunch of dirt? No. But you know what I do see is an absolute boatload of plants. And my inner plant spacing is very, very tight. So this is growing more like a turf grass, very, very tight. You know, even like this little bit here, when that gets matted down, well, there you go. You have protection. Just don't leave, that much thatch. Leaving this, taking a third of your plants, okay? Well, let's talk about that real quick if I can get it in before my phone dies. A third, that third grazing stuff, I'm gonna call it nonsense because I don't believe in it. I used to do it, doesn't work. Doesn't work for me, whatever. Anyway, a lot of total grazers also say the same thing. So they say graze a third, trample a third, leave a third. Okay, well that really means is they're gonna eat a third of your plants, they're going to leave a third of your plants, and they're gonna trample maybe somewhere a third. And can you get that ratio perfect? Absolutely not. But what they do when you're doing that third thing, they're taking a third of the grasses that are out there, and what third is that? The most palatable, the best grasses, and they're eating them to the ground. And what are they leaving behind? The old crap, the stuff they don't want. And so there you go. That's selective grazing at your finest. So now you're left unpalatable grasses. They weren't palatable the first time. They didn't want to eat them the first time. Do you think they're going to eat them when they're even older and more lignified and nastier and lower in protein? Absolutely not. So, and then you mat all that stuff down. How much, if you've ever taken grass clippings and spread them anywhere, what is that? That's mulch. What does it do? It suppresses growth. So if you're trying to suppress the growth of your grass, please, by all means, trample down massive amounts of grass, and your inner plant space will open up. You'll have less plants, you'll have less germination, you'll have less total production. So this is how you make more money. This is how you run more cattle. Right now, because of doing the Total Grazing Program and implementing it here, and yes, we've had good rain this year. Yes, that's very important. But the times that we just came out of a 6-week drought, we didn't have any rain. And guess what? I still had amazing regrowth. Why? Because I had well-rested plants with deep, energy-filled roots, and the stuff just came right back. It's beautiful. Let me flip around here. I want to see if I can show you this. Let's zoom a little bit. It'll be grainy, guys, but see them little sheep over there? See how green that is? It looks like spring. That is all energy store regrowth. We didn't leave leaves on those plants. Not worth a damn anyway, like that close. We grazed it as hard as we could, and then I mowed as tight as I could, and now we're letting it recover. And it came back and it was looking beautiful. I had a guy out here, he's an ag salesman, consultant, all this stuff, and he was blown away that we had such good looking grass in the middle of a drought. I'm like, well, it's because those things are reaching down and pulling moisture up from places that non-recovered grasses can't, because their roots are too weak and too short. So anyway, Total Grazing Program here at Tick Creek Ranch. This year, 2024, November 7th and 8th. The link is in the description. Hit it up. There is limited space. Jim Elizondo is going to be the guest speaker. He is going to tell you guys how to implement this system. You're going to see it with your own eyes. We're going to walk around the ranch after all the classroom, and you guys are going to get to see what we do, how we do it, why we do it, what we're doing good, what we're doing bad, all that stuff, right? So, all right, guys, more questions. Any more? Let me see. No, I'm not a scientist at all. I'm just a redneck out here trying to make it work. Tucker, you've been flying by the seat of your pants for years, huh? Let's see. Hey, Jack. Yeah, buddy, you got to take in. You like the live stream, so I appreciate it, bud. I appreciate it. Hey, anybody that's in here still that does appreciate it, what really helps us, and it helps push this stuff to more people to get more of the word out, please hit the like button. That really helps. You know, us content creators sit out here and we all beg and plead, oh, please push that one little button. Doesn't take any effort. If you guys can do it, that would just really help us. We'd appreciate it, you know? So, any other questions, guys? Let's see here. Yeah, they leave the weeds. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hello from Poland. So my phone is going to die. I just want to get that out there. You guys want to see the cattle real quick before we go? Let's take a look at them and see what their condition's doing. See what their condition's doing here. Not too bad. Not too bad. You know, these are lactating cows. They have a massive energy or nutritional requirement right now, right? I don't think she looks too skinny, you know. Looking pretty good. 36 here. She's looking pretty good. She's a lighter framed animal. She just doesn't have a giant gut. But, you know, they're growing some big old fat, beautiful calves. 506, probably the best animal in the herd. One of. Thank you. Yes, I love these girls. They're good. See the happy lines on her side? You see those little stripes? Right there. Let's get close if she'll let me. She's like, ooh, selfie stick. Hey, girl. Hey, you want to tell everybody hi? Ah. Oh, don't lick it. Don't lick it. That is an indicator of really good hormonal balance. Meaning they're firing on all cylinders, right? They're just happy and healthy. Okay, my phone is gonna die. Here's my favorite bull calf, and we're gonna be keeping him back. So, oh man, this stinks. I should have done better at my battery management. I apologize. So, hey, we're gonna get out of here. Check out the link if you want, or if you're interested in coming to the Total Grazing program here on our ranch. Again, this November 7th and 8th, right here, Alton, Missouri. Check us out. Hit up the link. It's in the description. We sure appreciate you guys. We'll be coming back to you soon to talk more about this crazy lunatic style grazing. All right, guys. Appreciate you.